Space Goat! Space Goat! Space Goat! Coast to coast.
The drive to conquer space arose in New Mexico soon after World War II. German rocket engineers arrived at White Sands Proving Ground under the program Operation Paperclip. Along with the brain trust came 300 railroad cars of rocket parts and the old adage, what goes up must come down. In this episode, Space Goat looks at the top 5 rocket crashes in New Mexico. Number 5. The V-2 that terrified a bunker. The first V-2 that lifted off at White Sands Proving Ground was more notable for the witnesses' reactions. The rocket was barely in the air on April 16, 1946, when controllers aborted the flight. Viewers had packed into the 937-square-foot Launch Complex 33 blockhouse. The structure had 12-foot thick floors and walls that were 10 feet of reinforced concrete. The pyramidal roof was 27 feet thick, and the door was blast-proof. The building was built to withstand a direct hit from a V-2 traveling at 2,000 miles per hour. Those inside attempted to watch through viewing ports of 3-inch thick blast-proof safety glass. But there were too many people and too few windows. Next option, run outside. When they looked up, the V-2 was erratic and appeared to be headed right at them. They scrambled to rush back in, but collided with those still trying to get out. Fortunately, the rocket didn't hit the bunker, and on subsequent launches a guard was posted at the door. No one left until the area was deemed safe. Number 4. The OQ-19 that burrowed under mountain underbrush. June 9, 1960. Sacramento Mountains residents near Mayhill called the sheriff to report a downed plane. Soon, search teams were combing the area. Holloman Air Force Base said they had nothing missing. The Army at Fort Bliss, El Paso said, not us. It wasn't long before a Mayhill rancher and deputies discovered an OQ-19 in some underbrush. Searchers dragged it out, loaded the OQ-19 in a Jeep, and returned it to what was reported as the owner. That happened to be the Air Force. The OQ-19 was a target drone. British World War I pilot Reginald Denny designed the RCAT, or radio-controlled aerial target. He came to America in the early 1930s and opened a model airplane shop on Hollywood Boulevard. That grew into the Radioplane Company after 1935, when he demonstrated a prototype to the Army to train anti-aircraft gunners. Now a successful manufacturer, Denny branched out into acting, performing alongside the likes of Greta Garbo and Frank Sinatra. His last role? Denny played Commodore Schmidlap in the 1966 movie Batman, and he died the next year. Number 3. The Aerobee that nearly obliterated the spectators. The first Aerobee high launch in May of 1956 from Holloman Air Force Base was spectacular. The goal was to set a new high-altitude record for a single-stage rocket. Spectators watching were warned the booster, after detachment from the rocket, would likely fall to the launch site. Suddenly, the loudspeaker erupted with a dire announcement. The rocket is coming back. Everyone to the blockhouse. Unfortunately, the spectators had wandered too far from the blockhouse and could only hope they didn't become ground zero. The drama was over in moments. The rocket slammed into the ground with a roar and erupting smoke about a mile from the launch tower. No one could deny that the launch had been anything but spectacular. Number 2. The missile that nearly bombed downtown Albuquerque. During a May 1960 Armed Forces Day demonstration at Holloman Air Force Base, Alamogordo, more than 10,000 spectators watched as a Matador, a surface-to-surface cruise missile, veered off course. The missile was streaking toward Albuquerque. An F-100 fighter jet gave chase, but couldn't keep up. An F-106 that had participated earlier in the show was in flight near the Mescalero Apache Reservation and saved the day, and downtown Albuquerque. The pilot, at 35,000 feet altitude, unleashed a Falcon air-to-air missile, the first missile with a computer brain, destroying the Matador. Impact was 8 miles northwest of Berlin. Debris rained harmlessly onto the desert floor. Number 1. The day a V-2 blew up over Alamogordo. May 15, 1947. A German V-2 exploded over Alamogordo and smacked into the mountain foothills. Robert Calloway was a high school freshman. While tossing a baseball with a friend at Michigan Avenue and 15th Street, the boys heard the explosion. The next day, the school year's last, classes let out early, and Calloway said he and 3 friends hopped in the bed of a red Model B Ford pickup truck owned by a man heading toward the wreckage. There, the curious boys ran into the military. The guards cautioned them to avoid the dangerous spun glass insulation and any hydrogen peroxide fuel. Outside of that, Calloway said, the guard told them they could retrieve anything that's left. The kids, who were model rocket enthusiasts, scooped up wiring panels and fuel tanks that they would later convert into portable welding tanks. Later, they learned that before the military had arrived, other scavengers had made off with cameras. The Air Force quickly went door to door, and by midnight, they'd recovered their cameras. Thanks, Space Code, for another fascinating foray into New Mexico space history, often fraught with danger. Watch for Space Code's next episode. And be sure to follow and like us on Facebook, YouTube, and nmspacemuseum.org.